Duke Nukem 3D, released in 1996 for MS-DOS, was a first-person shooter, FPS, developed by 3D Realms, previously Apogee Software. It was the third game in the Duke Nukem series, but marked a major shift from its 2D, side-scrolling predecessors, adopting the 3D perspective common to the FPS genre. Duke Nukem 3D remains one of the most iconic and influential FPS games of the 90s, often compared to contemporaries like Doom and Quake. Its blend of humor, interactivity, and solid FPS mechanics helped pave the way for later FPS games that would include more personality, destructible environments, and sophisticated weapon systems. The game was developed by 3D Realms, a division of Apogee Software, under the leadership of George Broussard and Scott Miller. The core team consisted of a small group of developers, including Alan H. Bloom III and Todd Replogle, who had worked on earlier Duke Nukem titles. The first two Duke Nukem games, released in 1991 and 1993, were 2D side-scrollers with basic platforming mechanics. As the FPS genre gained popularity following the success of Wolfenstein 3D and Doom, 3D Realms wanted to bring Duke Nukem into the 3D world. The team decided early on that they would not just clone Doom, instead, they wanted to push the boundaries of what FPS games could do in terms of interactivity, level design, and character personality. Ken Silverman, the creator of the build engine, started working on it in 1993, just 18 years old at the time. This engine would power Duke Nukem 3D and several other FPS games in the mid-90s, including Shadow Warrior and Blood. Though not a true 3D engine, it used 2.5D technology like Doom. The build engine allowed for advanced features such as destructible environments, interactive objects, e.g., players could turn lights on and off, use toilets, etc. Room-over-room stacking, creating the illusion of multi-level environments and dynamic lighting and shading, which was an improvement over the static lighting in Doom. Even during development, the team was aware that the game's content, featuring strippers, crude humor, and extreme violence, would likely provoke controversy. Despite this, they made little effort to tone it down, believing that the mature themes and humor were integral to Duke's character and the game's appeal. The game eventually attracted criticism from censorship groups and fueled debates about violence and sexuality in video games. Duke Nukem 3D was innovative for its time, but it wasn't immune to technical issues and bugs, especially considering the limitations of DOS and the build engine. 2.5D constraints. While the build engine allowed for some impressive tricks, it wasn't a true 3D engine like those that would appear later, e.g., Quake. The 2.5D nature meant Z-fighting, objects or textures would occasionally fight for visibility when placed too close together, leading to flickering or visual artifacts. Sprite limitations, enemies, objects, and NPCs were all sprites, which made their movement and rotation sometimes appear unnatural when viewed from certain angles. Room-over-room illusions. Though the engine could simulate rooms stacked over each other, it wasn't genuine 3D. Occasionally, this led to visual glitches or objects in one room appearing oddly when viewed from another. While these issues did affect gameplay, the groundbreaking nature of Duke Nukem 3DS interactivity, humor, and level design outweighed many of the technical shortcomings, cementing its legacy as a classic. Duke Nukem 3D was embroiled in controversy for several reasons, mostly related to its content. At the time of its release in 1996, the game pushed boundaries in terms of violence, sexuality, and mature themes, which led to significant public and media attention. Like other popular first-person shooters of the time, Doom, Quake, Duke Nukem 3D featured graphic depictions of violence. However, Duke Nukem 3D took things further by allowing players to blow up enemies in gruesome ways, such as with pipe bombs or rocket launchers, often leaving bloody remains scattered around the environment. The interactivity of the environment heightened the violence, as players could interact with the bodies and even leave a trail of carnage behind them. This degree of realism and gore drew criticism from anti-violence advocates and some parent groups. One of the most contentious aspects of Duke Nukem 3D was its portrayal of women. The game featured numerous scantily clad or topless strippers, as well as references to adult films. In certain levels, players could interact with strippers by tipping them with in-game currency, which would trigger an animation of them exposing themselves. The protagonist, Duke Nukem, became iconic for his over-the-top machismo and politically incorrect one-liners. Many of his quotes were taken from or inspired by 1980s and 1990s action films, particularly those of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Commando, Predator, and Bruce Campbell, Evil Dead. While fans appreciated the humor, some critics saw Duke's wisecracks and general attitude as reinforcing toxic masculinity. His arrogant, hypersexual, and violent persona was seen as promoting negative stereotypes. The irreverent humor in the game often made light of serious topics like violence, sexuality, and crude bodily functions, which drew further criticism, particularly from parents and advocacy groups who felt it was inappropriate for younger audiences. Upon its release in January 1996, Duke Nukem 3D sold very well, quickly gaining traction in the PC gaming market. By the end of 1996, it was estimated that the game had sold over 1 million copies. This was a significant achievement, considering that Doom had set a high bar for first-person shooters just a few years earlier. It became one of the top-selling DOS games of the era, thanks to its innovative gameplay and the growing popularity of the FPS genre. Over the years, Duke Nukem 3D continued to sell well due to re-releases and updates. By 2011, the game had sold approximately 3.5 million copies globally across all platforms. The game's enduring popularity, driven by both its innovative design and the controversy surrounding its content, helped keep sales strong long after its original release. Duke Nukem 3D, Atomic Edition, an expanded version of the game released later in 1996, added an additional fourth episode and included several gameplay enhancements. This edition helped boost sales further, particularly for fans looking for more content. Expansion packs, such as Duke It Out in DC, Duke, Nuclear Winter, and Duke Caribbean, Life's a Beach, were well received and contributed to keeping Duke Nukem 3D in the spotlight, though these expansions sold fewer copies compared to the base game.